Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Escher. I am the head of audience development at TechCrunch, and I cover early stage startups and venture capital based in San Francisco. And with me today, I have Lina Chen. She is the co-founder and former CEO of a gaming firm called Nix Hydra. So Lina started this company because she realized she was in the industry of gaming and entertainment, and she was noticing that there were so many games that were written for and marketed towards men. And she thought that this could be an untapped opportunity to start writing storylines and creating games that were more targeted towards a female audience. So she went out to create this company that went on to raise $5.6 million in venture capital, along with her co-founder. And so she saw very early success with a game called Egg Baby. And this game was, it was a game where the user could parent and nurture this egg creature, and it would eventually hatch into a surprise creature based on the parenting that it received. So this game saw 8 million downloads in 1 year with absolutely zero marketing. So Lina is here today to tell us more about her story, more of the successes that she saw when launching the company, scaling the company, and eventually there was a plot twist in her story. So right as the company was scaling up and seeing all of this early success and scoring fundraising and growing in talent, Lina decided to leave the company and decided that her time was over at the company. So we want to know, contrary to what most founders are doing at this stage, what was going through your head when you decided to exit?
Yeah, it's funny. Somebody yesterday, I was like, the company got to profitability, and then I decided to leave and bring in a new CEO. And they were like, really? Like, that's the stage that you decided to leave? Usually, like, when things are going well. But so I think I had to ask myself, like, what do I really enjoy? And I enjoy creating things and getting them to a point. And then, but did I enjoy taking it from like stability to like scaling and going even? Did I enjoy it, and was I good at it? And I didn't really enjoy it. And not only that, I don't know if that's really my natural talent. And so I felt like the company would be better, and I would be better if we brought in a new CEO. And then me and my co-founder, we've always struggled with getting on the same page quickly. And we pushed through, but I think like throughout the years, and the company, it had been 6 years since we raised angel financing, right? And so like by 2018, last year, it was clear that like this was going to be slowing the company down if one of us didn't leave. And so with all of that, it just made sense that that would be the right move for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. So and I feel like this is something that isn't talked about enough in the startup and tech world. The co-founder relationship is so important, but oftentimes it seems like it's the last thing that founders are thinking about when they're fundraising, they're scaling, they're hiring, so many things are going through their mind. What advice do you have for entrepreneurs, people who are about to launch a company, who are thinking about launching a company? What advice do you have for them about selecting the right co-founder?
Okay, so there's a book called The Founder's Dilemma, which there's a chapter in there that's like, this guy at Harvard did all the studies, and it's like, here's your probability of success if your co-founder is like a friend or a family member, or like your husband or wife, a spouse, if it's someone you met at work. And so like statistically speaking, the best is someone that you have worked with before, but you're not close friends. Me and my co-founder were very close friends. We had never worked together before, so we didn't fit into that statistically. Turned out okay, but I think one of the things, obviously value, you want to make sure that you have the same values. And then in terms of skill sets, I think that me and my co-founder, we started the company when we were quite young, so I think we were naive about that. I'm more on the business side, and she's more creative. but we were missing like an operational COO type of thing. And so that really slowed down the company in the beginning a lot. And like I took on a lot of that, and it was like not what I enjoyed and not what I was necessarily good at. So it really dragged the company. It slowed us down. So I think thinking about like, is there a key ingredient that is missing in your core team? I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a co-founder. It could be someone you hire. But that it would be great if it was maybe if my co-founder wasn't a creative and was a COO type, that might have been a different story as well. And then also once you get started with your co-founder, I found that like, it's funny to say, I mean, communication is obviously key, but you'll be surprised that like, because if you know each other very well, sometimes you can assume things about the other person. You think they know what you mean because you guys know each other so well, but that's when things break down because actually that's not what they meant or that's not what you meant. And so you actually have to go like the extra step to over communicate with someone that you know very well. Is what I found.
Yeah. What kind of check-ins, like how often would you recommend that you do kind of a check-in with your co-founder and say, hey, you know, like how are we feeling?
For me, daily, you know, at one point in our relationship, and it's been like not the easiest relationship for all 6 years, but the easiest time during that relationship is when we carpool to work every day. And it was just like, we weren't talking about business necessarily. It was like sometimes about just our lives, but we were in sync a lot more during that time. And then at some point, we moved our desks, and this is like just a silly example, but like proximity really matters. We moved our desks away from each other, and that like our communication just broke down. I mean, it was like totally different. It's just like, where are your desks? Like, make sure they're next to each other.
Definitely.
Something as small as that.
So I want to shift over to talk about fundraising a little bit. That's a key part of growing a business. So you built a product for a female-leaning audience. Tech investors globally are disproportionately male. What was your fundraising experience like? And did your story and your product initially resonate with investors?
Yeah, and I think especially 6 years ago, it was even more male. Now there's a lot more people investing in female-led companies and like women investors. But yeah, all the investors we pitched to, and all the investors that we ended up with, obviously, were all male. It was, you know, because when you raise the first round of angel financing, a lot of times angels are basically like rich individuals who, if they resonate with whatever your product is, it's more likely that they'll make an investment. It's like a gut thing. Even for VCs, actually, it's a lot of a gut instinct. But if your product is something they don't quite understand, it's a little bit harder to make that, connection. But you just sort of talk to enough people, and one of the key people who came on board, he was a very successful gaming founder in China, and even though it's a he, but he knew the gaming industry enough that he was like, oh, well, this is clearly like a missing, it's like a gap in the market and somebody should address it. So, he took that chance. And then actually the other person who invested is a very successful gaming company founder in Los Angeles. Same thing, because he knew the gaming industry so well too, and he was a kind of an open-minded individual. He thought that, it makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I think it's often overlooked that the founder-investor relationship is just as much the founder choosing the right investor for themselves as it is the investor choosing who to fund.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that you saw that side of it as well. So I want to talk about exits too. So when you're fundraising and scaling and still building your product and in those very early stages, an exit strategy might not be at the top of mind. In fact, it probably isn't. And so whether that's a merger and acquisition, selling to another company, or physically leaving the company yourself as the CEO, how early should founders start thinking about an exit strategy?
I mean, not too much focus, but like early. I mean, right after you raise Series A, it would be good to start just like getting to know all the people who run product at certain larger companies that you feel like could acquire you. That would be like, you might not sell, you might go IPO, but it's just good to have that, And then also, maybe just like sort of not right after Series A, but maybe a couple of years after, you're sort of thinking about if I had to leave for any reason, whether I got sick or like I really wasn't enjoying it anymore, or like I wasn't doing a great job, or whatever it was that you feel like is a good reason to go. You want to know like who your CEO candidates might be. Like when we were running the CEO search, it was really difficult to find someone that everybody liked and would like come in quickly. So yeah, like I would say like within a few years of raising Series A, you kind of want to plan it out, and then yeah.
Sure. Did you always know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Yes. It's almost like I didn't see many other options that I liked. Like I didn't really. Well, both my parents are entrepreneurs, so I think it's like naturally you're just like, oh, that's the thing to do in life. Yeah. So I guess so.
Sure. You're originally from South Africa, right? But your startup was based in Los Angeles, California, in the U.S. What are some challenges that you encountered as a foreign-born founder who was trying to launch a company in a market where you did not have citizenship?
Right. Yes, that was probably, and this sounds like a lot, but it was probably like 20% more time that I had to spend just on wrangling visa issues and just sort of, in the beginning, before we were raising the financing, it's very hard to get a visa to run your company. You can start a company, but you can't run it in the US. And so it was like a catch-22 where at some point, I kept on going on a B1 visa, which is like a business visa, to go meet investors. And then the border officials, literally they thought I was smuggling drugs because they would like pull me into a room and go through all my bags and be like, why are you going so often but you don't have a job? They didn't really understand the whole startup thing. Right. So at some point they said, well, you can't really come back anytime soon. We're not going to let you in if you do it, right? And so I was like, okay, so I need to like get this money. And my startup lawyer said, or my the visa lawyer, basically immigration lawyer, said you need to raise enough money so that the company looks like a legitimate company so that it can give you a work visa. Okay. But then I kind of needed to go into the US to meet with investors to get the money, so it was kind of a catch-22. Eventually you just keep going at it and then you fix the problem.
Yeah. So what's I think at this conference we have a lot of founders who are international and operating businesses internationally. What advice do you have for them?
I mean, if you try to like not start in the US if you can, would probably be the easiest, and then sort of do the L1 thing and move over. But if you have to start in the US, I mean, look, I mean, it's fun. Like you can do it. You just have to raise the money quickly and then get yourself a H-1B visa to start with, and then once it's successful, you can move on to. There's like an extraordinary person thing, which now I have.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Do you feel like there is do you feel like there's any congruence between being an entrepreneur and being an immigrant?
Yeah, I guess so, because both you have to sort of go the extra mile, and there's more obstacles than usual, like a usual job, or if you're a citizen, where it's like, yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be great to hear more about when you turned profitable at the company. And was that initially a milestone that you were excited about? Like, how did that come about? How did you reach that goal?
It's funny because right before that, I thought we were going bankrupt. So it was like a sudden twist. 2017, I thought we were going to be bankrupt by the end of 2017 because the product that came out in 2016, we spent so much money on it, and it did not go as well as we expected financially, right? And then we reorganized the company and ran like this crazy self-organizing experiment where like new products came out. I think 6 products came out within 6 weeks, tiny products. And one of them was showing initial traction, but it didn't have the monetization or the retention features or anything. But we said, like people are telling people about it, not as much as Egg Baby, but they were, and it was between that and a different product, which no one was really spreading, but it had better retention, and we could only focus on one. And so I said, let's just focus on the one where people are telling people, because that's something that you can't find, you can't buy that. And then it worked, luckily. We put in the monetization, we improved it, and that's what took us back to profitability. So, it was a real roller coaster.
Yeah, definitely. So once you reach that profitability, and I'm seeing that we have some audience questions too. So Once you hit that milestone of being profitable, then were you able to start thinking about hiring more? And do you have any advice around first hires beyond initial co-founders? Like, what is the next hire after co-founders?
So we've been profitable, like, I guess now we're still profitable, but before that we were profitable after Egg Baby because we had such a tiny team. So the first time we were profitable, and right after you raise Series A, and the next company I'll do is like, it's funny. It's funny to say now, but it's we hired a lot of junior people because I felt like, why don't we get hands-on people to build the product? And next time I wouldn't do that. I would go with like the senior management team. Like, I'll hire out your C-level people, and then they would hire everybody else. Even though they're not hands-on, you feel like they're not being productive because they're just spending more money, like hiring more people, or they're expensive. But no, actually, like they're the core backbone, and they form the structure of the company. So yeah, that would
you
be my next
hire like an operations person or
for
a
me
product
personally?
person?
Yes.
Operations,
Yeah.
sure, yeah, definitely. How do you tell the difference between hurdles and simply lacking PMF?
PMF.
I'm not sure what that stands for. You can move on. How important are mentors?
Product market fit. Product market fit.
Yeah, that's what it means.
Hurdles and product market
Yeah.
fit. You can tell pretty. You mean like it? Because you mean like if the product maybe it just needs like an extra boost? This question might need a little bit of. But if that's the meaning, like if you're like if we just changed it a little bit.
Yeah, I guess we can move on to a different one.
Okay.
I really like the idea of talking about mentorship. So how important was mentorship to you in those early phases? And how were you able to tell the difference between good or bad advice? How difficult was it for you to seek out a mentor? What was that process like?
So I had a lot of mentors, but short, like not intense mentors, which now I think I would like someone. So like intense mentors being someone who you talk to almost like, almost every day or like every once a week or something. I didn't have anything like that. I had mentors that I talked to maybe once a quarter, but I had like 10 of them, and they would be for specific things. They're quite important. I mean, they can obviously like connect you to the key people. They can help you they can connect you to somebody who can help you raise money. I mean, yeah, and like when you encounter any sort of difficulty, even if they're not giving you good advice, or if the advice doesn't necessarily apply to you, it just helps for you to be talking, especially if you're the CEO, to just talk to somebody who's been through something similar, even if you don't do exactly what they did. Like even just psychologically, if you're feeling better, you're going to execute better. And then sometimes it's just a matter of them saying, like one of my mentors, he put me in touch with someone who I was very excited to meet, who was very successful, all this stuff, and I was like, give me some advice for meeting this person? And he was like, just be yourself. And it was just that vote of confidence, like you are enough on your own. It's like, okay, cool. Like just that is very helpful.
Yeah.
Good and bad advice. Well, for me, for me, it's like a gut instinct. Like you just feel like something's off, and you can still be very thankful for that advice because it might be their truth, but it's not going to apply necessarily in your. Oh, and the other thing is, if they give a lot of advice without listening. So like first they should be listening, asking questions, and then giving you the advice.
Yeah, I feel like active listening is a totally underrated skill.
Oh my gosh,
in this industry for sure.
Yeah. Most things.
Yeah, definitely. Did you end up appointing the next CEO? Like, what was it like to replace yourself, or was it your co-founder who took over the CEO role?
No, she's creative, so it wasn't.
Right.
We went on like a huge search through like my network mostly, and then we hired a recruiter to do it, and then ultimately it didn't come through the recruiter, but yeah, I mean it took like 7-8 months, I think. It took longer than we expected, and then the first candidate also sort of like we thought he was going to do it, but then he had to move. Yeah, so have your CEO ducks in a row when you're ready to leave.
Yeah. Definitely. I feel like that's part of the process of your exit strategy and how you figure that out in the first place. For sure. So it looks like we're out of time. I'm sure we could talk
that
for
went by
much
so quickly.
longer
Yeah.
about this. Thank you so much for joining
Yes,
us.
thank you.
And thanks for sharing your story. And thanks for listening.
Thanks.